As usual, Blake's own evidence is going to backfire on herself.
Yeah, we've lost some time.
Hi and welcome to Flossom Talk. I'm Shashti Floor, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. First of all, a big thank you to my friend James Scanlon, who painted this oil painting for Flossom Talk for my studio. I really think it's so cool, and it really represents everything that my channel stands for, the greatness and the greed in the town built on delusion. And I think it's so cool that James has been a part of Hollywood himself for so many years. He was the director of motion capture for Titanic and The Matrix, and he's had his artwork shown all over town and in TV shows such as Better Things and The Starter Wife. If you're interested to check out more of his artwork, you can go to his Instagram page. It's James Scanlon Artist. I will leave a link below where you can also order this in print for yourself if you want that, or you can look at some of his other cool stuff. Yes, so thank you, James. Anyways, let's get into all the crazy madness today. So as I mentioned yesterday in my episode with just a screenshot, because this thing happened after I recorded yesterday, Blake Lively is required to submit a CD to the court by tomorrow. As we've learned last time, the court can't handle audio files, which I find so insane. So she has to give them a CD. So what is this recording? I'll get into that in this episode because we have some clues here. And I think, as usual, Blake's own evidence is going to backfire on herself. Also, big day today because today is the deadline for Blake's team to respond to Justin Baldoni's motion for summary judgment. She hasn't filed yet. I'm sure she's going to file 2 minutes to midnight. That's what they usually do. I'm sure it's going to be a huge document with a bunch of attachments and more evidence. So yeah, stay tuned for that. We're going to probably get into that tomorrow. Also big news today, Andy from Popcorn Planet's motion to quash his subpoena was denied. The judge in Florida said, you are not a journalist, so you shouldn't have any journalist privilege here. So the judge ruled that Popcorn Planet has to basically hand over all communications he had in regards to Blake Lively. What does this really mean? I think this is actually going to backfire on Blake Lively, and I'll get into that as well. Another filing today, the Wayfair parties has responded to the New York Times. Remember, New York Times sued Wayfair because they want them to pay their legal bills for fighting their lawsuits. So now the Wayfair party has responded. I also wanted to go into some of the biggest cracks in Blake Lively's lawsuit in this episode. What is the major thing here that she is missing that makes me believe that she has no chance to win this lawsuit? Okay, so let's get into it. So tomorrow, Blake Lively has to give this recording to the court, to the clerk down there, and he has to burn some copies and give to reporters or content creators who come down there and ask for them. So I'm sure we're going to have that recording as soon as it hits the court, because there are some really amazing people out there that are making sure that the truth is coming out in real time. So this recording is filed by Blake Lively in hopes to, of course, help herself. This was filed in accordance to her spoliation motion, meaning that she wanted to punish the Wayfair parties because she believed that they had deleted evidence on purpose. And what doesn't make sense to me here is that Blake Lively filed this and then sealed this recording. Why would you seal something that helps you? If this would benefit Blake in any way, she would have used this recording already. She didn't. And now the judge probably thinks that this is contradicting some of the things that she's claiming. Otherwise, it wouldn't make that much sense for the judge to actually say, hey, this recording needs to be out there. Remember, he said the same thing with the Steve Sarowitz recording. He was the one who said transparency here. The public deserves to know. So what I think we can expect from this evidence now, and I think we've seen so many examples of this now, that Blake is using and filing evidence that is really hurting herself because she doesn't have anything. She's trying to twist the truth around and use evidence that really supports Baldoni and not her. And we've seen that with so many of the text messages and and emails, all this evidence that she's claiming that is supporting her case. And most of the time it's doing the opposite. And I think that's what we're going to see here. I can't wait to listen to this recording. And of course, as soon as I get it, I will create a video around it and I will report on it and I will keep you updated. Okay, so let's get into Andy's motion that was denied. I was really shocked by this. Apparently, the judge in Florida, where he fought the subpoena, believes that he is not a journalist because he is on YouTube. They said that he hasn't proven that he's a journalist and he's not working in editorial ways. And that's why he cannot claim reporter privilege. So they say that he has to give up all his communications with Blake Lively's team. And I know Andy has spoken about this on his channel, that he has reached out to both the Wayfair parties and Blake Lively's team to ask for comments. That's what a reporter does. That's supposed to be your job, to actually do balanced reporting. So you are contacting both sides to give both sides the opportunity to respond. But we know that Andy's been working on this documentary, and that's probably one of the reasons that they're after him here. And in that documentary, he's been looking for sources. I can imagine, as you do in a documentary, I'm a part of this documentary. He reached out to me to get me to participate. And I'm sure he reached out to both parties to try to get people for his documentary. Andy has already dropped a press release about this, and he's saying that this ruling is a chilling attack on independent journalism. It suggests that unless you work for a newspaper or legacy media corporation, you have no right to protect your sources. That is not only wrong, it endangers every whistleblower, content creator, podcaster, and independent reporter working today. So true. And that's why this is so important. And that's why it's so important that everyone gives a lot of attention to this, because it hurts everyone. If a big celebrity or a powerful person can go after critics on the internet, any critic, and say that, hey, here's a subpoena, you have to give me all your sources. And if you don't, if you want to fight it, you're probably stuck with bills worth, up to $50,000, $100,000. And that's the reality here. And that's why this is so scary. Andy says here as well that he is planning to appeal this to the 11th Circuit. I don't know how long that's going to take, but it's going to be like another headache, more hassle for him. I think they gave him a deadline here of December 17th to give up all this information. I don't know what they think they're going to find here, because what they're looking for is content creators or journalists who've been paid by Wayfair to support their narrative. And as you know, they haven't found any evidence of that. So all they're going to find here is a content creator / journalist doing his job, doing his due diligence of contacting sources before he's reporting on something. And what is that going to do for Blake Lively's case when they find out that's what he's been up to? It's just going to harm her case, because then again, there is no evidence of a smear campaign. And now it seems like Andy is their last hope here to prove that Wayfair parties were collaborating with journalists or content creators. Because as you know, so far, they have found zero evidence of that. And they have, as you know, subpoenaed over 107 content creators trying to find evidence. So again, this is just going to work against her. When she finds this information, she is saying that this information was withheld from the Wayfair parties, and Melissa Nathan and I think Brian Friedman, who are the two people that I think they're accusing him of talking to. And the funny thing is, he didn't start communicating with that side, as far as I know, until the lawsuit was filed. So then they're saying, oh, you smeared her after she sued them for smearing. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to what Blake is accusing people of, as you know. So if I'm going to be honest, the reason why I didn't contact anyone from Blake's team or Justin's team was because I wanted to just have a completely clean slate, because I was already dragged into this drama through the New York Times article where they strongly insinuated that I was working with his team. So that's why I never reached out to anyone, but I do completely understand why Andy did that. It wouldn't make him a good reporter if he didn't. So congrats to Blake's legal team for subpoenaing evidence that will weaken her case. Talking about all of this, we have to get back to the core of her claims, which I was looking at again today because someone sent me this interview where Jack Tapper from CNN is interviewing Michael Gottlieb, which is one of Blake's main attorneys. And thank you, Marlene, by the way, for sending me that interview. I remember I spoke about it when this happened. It was just after Justin's lawsuit was dismissed by the judge, and Blake's team went on a victory lap and said, you know, the claims were baseless, blah, blah, blah. It had nothing to do with that. The judge didn't even look at the facts in the lawsuit because he just said, you know, she has privilege because she filed this CRD complaint and this was about SH, so she has privilege, so you can't sue her. So it was just a technical reason for that dismissal. It was nothing about what he said and accused her of and Ryan Reynolds of and Leslie Sloan of wasn't true. That's what they said, of course, in the media. And in this segment on CNN, when Jake Tapper is interviewing Michael Gottlieb, he says himself, as a reporter, there was a very orchestrated campaign against her.
And one of the things that's so fascinating and also disturbing about this case is how much the internet it plays a role with people trying to get out information to smear. And there was a very orchestrated campaign to smear Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds to a lesser extent.
Those are the words that Jake Tapper is using here. So he is claiming this to be true without having any evidence. Talk about doing due diligence here. Anyways, so here comes the really interesting aspect to me of this entire case. And this is where I think that Blake is definitely going to lose her credibility with the court. Because you have to remember that Blake filed these 17 points because she was upset about things that the Wayfarer parties did on the set. Yeah, you know, they showed her a video of a woman after she gave birth, and they said that, and Justin said that her beanie was sexy. Things like that. That wasn't allowed anymore, including Justin not allowed to cry anymore. That was also one of the things that were mentioned in those 17 points. So after the Wayfarer parties signed these points because Blake Lively was blackmailing them, saying that she refused to come back and shoot the movie unless they signed these documents. So they did. She said that after they signed these documents, there were no more incidents. She said nothing more happened after this. So this is in the beginning of January. Then she's claiming that the Wayfarer parties waited over 6 months before they retaliated against her. And they chose a moment where they would sabotage their own hard work, their own movie, to do this retaliation campaign against her. Where is the logic in that? If they were going to retaliate against her for speaking out and for making these 17 points, why did they wait until the most vulnerable moment for themselves to do that? Also, of course, we have to keep in mind the reason why all of this backlash happened against around the release of the movie was because Blake was out there doing press. And it backfired on her. And also, to me, there is a lack of motive here. What was supposed to be the motivation from the Wayfarer parties and Justin Baldoni to retaliate against her? There were no financial gain in doing that. The only reason would be revenge. Why would they spend all this time and money just for revenge? They needed Blake to be in a good light so they could sell movie tickets. A smear campaign wouldn't only hurt Blake, it would definitely hurt themselves as well. Yeah, there's no logic here. And I think when you present this for a jury saying that why would they wait so long to retaliate against her? And I think what happened here is that Blake was so devastated after all this bad press and she was like, how can we blame this on someone else? And the lawyers were like, well, you could blame it on them, but you can't sue someone just for defaming you. That's too weak. And a lawyer said, well, it's not illegal to plant negative stories about someone. As you know, you've done it yourself, Blake. And then they went through some different scenarios here. Okay, how can we sue them for a smear campaign? And the lawyers probably said, well, did something inappropriate happen on set? Is there anything we can use there? And Blake was like, yes, Justin said that my beanie was sexy. And then he said that Jenny Slate's pants were sexy. And the lawyers were like, yes, that's perfect. We can use that. Anything else? Yes, I was shown a video after a woman gave birth and I thought it was something else. And they're like, oh my God, this is great. And then she said, yeah, in this intimate scene where we were dancing, Justin was biting my lip and he was being really inappropriate. I hope they didn't record that with audio, by the way. I don't think they did. So let's go for that one too. And her attorneys were like, yes, this is great. This is real SH. Let's use this. And now we can sue them for the retaliation. Anyway, that's what I think happened here. Okay, and then of course we have to talk about the New York Times as well, because now the Wayfair studio has officially answered the lawsuit that they filed against them because they want the Wayfair parties to pay for their legal fees. So the Times here is claiming anti-SLAPP, and they say that the Wayfair studios only sued them to punish journalism. And the Wayfair parties say, no, we're not trying to silence anyone here. We are just demanding accountability because they know, and I know because I was in that article, we know that they did not report on the truth here. We know that they cherry-picked and we know they didn't do their due diligence. And they have not taken any responsibility for that reporting that they based on purely one-sided information coming from Blake and her team. I actually feel like my story here is quite important in this case. I don't know why they're not mentioning it, but the fact that they accused me of being a part of the smear campaign without even reaching out to me and to ask me if it was true. I think that says a lot about this entire piece that they did and how sloppy it was. But of course, the New York Times is never going to admit fault because that's going to cost them money and credibility. So they just have to stick with this. I wonder what's happening in their internal meetings here, if Megan Thuy is just still saying, well, I believe Blake, I believe everything she told me. We know when they are publishing a story like this, it's not like they didn't go through the legal system, the internal legal system at the New York Times before they did that. So I wonder who didn't do their job here. And I think that the public deserves to know how they reported on these text messages. Did they see all the text messages themselves? Did they cherry pick which ones they wanted in the article? Or were they fed these illegally obtained text messages from Jennifer Abel's phone? Did they just receive the already cherry picked text messages that would support Blake's narrative? Either one of those options are terrible because either they knew what they were doing or they were just ignorant of what they were doing. Anyway, that's it for me today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. More news coming out later this week. It's all last minute, always. I hate that. I feel like, oh, today is the deadline for this thing. And then it doesn't show up until midnight. So stay tuned. Tomorrow, we will see Blake's response to Justin's summary judgment. And also, this recording, which I'm sure they're going to wait until the last minute as well. But I promise I will report on everything as usual. So yes, thanks for watching, you guys. And please subscribe if you haven't. And hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of Flawsome Talk. And I'll see you soon. Bye.
Yeah, we flawsome talk.